When the heart bows before Allah, something remarkable happens within you. You begin to see the world differently. You begin to feel differently. You start realizing that true strength isn't found in how long you can resist or endure, but in how sincerely you can surrender. It's not about holding everything together by force. It's about letting go, not in weakness, but in faith. When the heart finally bows before its creator, it stops fighting against life and starts flowing with divine purpose. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start saying, "This is happening for me." Because when the heart submits to Allah, it begins to understand that every trial, every challenge, and every delay carries meaning. Nothing is wasted. The truth is, most people think they are tired because they have too many responsibilities, too many burdens, too many things to do. But exhaustion isn't just physical, it's deeply spiritual. The body tires when the soul is hungry. And no amount of rest, no amount of sleep, can heal a heart that's disconnected from its Lord. You can sleep for 10 hours and still wake up empty, still wake up heavy, because tiredness isn't always in your muscles, it's in your heart. And the heart grows weary when it forgets who it belongs to. When your heart bows before Allah, that weariness begins to fade. You feel a new kind of energy rising from within, a strength that doesn't come from coffee or motivation, but from conviction. You begin to see that peace is not something you chase, it's something you receive when you let go of control. That moment when your forehead touches the ground in sujud, that's not just an act of worship, it's an act of surrender. You're saying, "Ya Allah, I cannot handle this life alone," and in that admission, you find power, because the one who admits his weakness before Allah becomes the strongest of all. There's a reason why sujud is the most honored position in prayer. It's the position where the human being is physically at his lowest, yet spiritually at his highest. That's where hearts recharge. That's where tiredness is replaced with tranquility. That's where tears of pain turn into tears of peace. Because the heart that bows before Allah is a heart that stops bowing before the world. You're no longer enslaved to people's opinions, to the noise of society, to the endless pursuit of validation. You are free, you are grounded in something eternal, and once your heart is in that state, discipline becomes natural. You don't need to force yourself to wake up for Fajr, you want to. You don't need to push yourself to stay away from sin, you feel its burden before it even happens. You begin to recognize that obedience isn't restriction, it's liberation. It's the freedom to rise above your lower desires, to live with clarity, to find meaning in every small act. The heart that bows before Allah doesn't tire of worship, because every moment of worship becomes a meeting with the one it loves most. So the next time you feel lost or exhausted, ask yourself, when was the last time your heart truly bowed? Not your body, not your words, but your heart. Because maybe you're not tired. Maybe your soul is simply calling you back to its creator. When the heart bows before Allah, it doesn't break, it begins to breathe again. Many people today say, "I'm just tired, I don't have the energy, I can't keep going." But the truth is, most of us aren't tired, we're undisciplined. We've allowed our emotions to control our actions and our desires to dictate our priorities. The exhaustion we feel isn't because we're doing too much, it's because we're doing too little of what truly matters. The problem isn't the workload, it's the lack of structure, the lack of spiritual focus, and the absence of consistency. When your heart isn't anchored to a purpose, even small tasks feel heavy. But when you live with direction and discipline, even the biggest challenges become manageable because they have meaning behind them. When you say you're tired of praying, tired of working, tired of being patient, understand what's really happening. You're not tired of those acts. You're tired of fighting your own lack of discipline. You're tired of constantly negotiating with yourself, making excuses, delaying what you know needs to be done. The mind grows weary not because life is hard, but because you keep resisting the structure that leads to peace. Discipline is not about punishment, it's about alignment. It's about training your body and soul to move in harmony with what Allah wants from you. When you pray on time, when you wake up early, When you control your tongue and your anger, that's not restriction. That's refinement. That's how you purify the soul. Think about how easily we find time for entertainment, for scrolling, for things that feed our distractions. Yet when it comes to acts that feed our hearts, prayer, reflection, Quran, remembrance, we suddenly feel tired. That's not physical fatigue, that's the sign of a heart losing focus. The undisciplined heart chases comfort, while the disciplined one chases purpose. The more you surrender to comfort, the more restless you become. But the more you discipline your heart for Allah's sake, the more peace you find in every moment. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that the strongest person is not the one who can defeat others, but the one who can control himself. That's real strength, that's discipline, and that discipline doesn't come overnight. It begins with one decision: to stop letting your feelings decide your faith. To stop waiting to feel motivated before doing what's right. The believer doesn't wait for the perfect mood to obey Allah. They obey, and then peace follows. Because obedience brings barakah, and barakah brings energy. If you wake up every day without a sense of discipline, your life will always feel out of balance. You'll keep running in circles, starting things and never finishing them, making promises you can't keep, chasing distractions that don't fulfill you. But when you anchor your life around consistency, around prayer, around remembrance, around structure, suddenly things begin to change. Your time expands, your mind clears, you stop being reactive and start being intentional. You begin to feel in control, not because life became easier, but because your heart became disciplined. The undisciplined person seeks comfort and ends up more tired. The disciplined person seeks purpose and finds peace. The irony is that discipline may seem difficult in the beginning, but it is what saves you from a lifetime of struggle. It's what gives you the energy to wake up before dawn, to stay focused when others give up, to keep your heart steadfast even when life shakes you. And when that discipline is rooted in the remembrance of Allah, it transforms your entire existence. You start to live every day with clarity, with strength, and with peace, because you finally realize you were never truly tired, you were just undisciplined. When faith enters the heart, discipline no longer feels like a burden. It becomes a form of devotion, a quiet act of love between you and Allah. What once felt difficult begins to feel natural because it's no longer about forcing yourself. It's about fulfilling your purpose. When your actions are driven by faith, you stop seeing them as duties and start seeing them as opportunities to connect. Every moment of restraint, every act of consistency, every bit of patience turns into worship. And that's when your life begins to transform from the inside out. Think about it. How many times have you pushed yourself to do something worldly just because it mattered to you? You stayed up late for work, you sacrificed sleep for exams, you went the extra mile for something temporary. Yet, when it comes to the one who gave you every breath, we hesitate. Why? Because our hearts haven't yet connected discipline with devotion. We see prayer as a task instead of a conversation. We see fasting as deprivation instead of purification. We see obedience as pressure instead of privilege, but once faith settles in the heart, everything changes. The same effort that once exhausted you now uplifts you, because you're doing it for the sake of the one who never forgets your effort. Discipline rooted in faith doesn't depend on emotion. You won't always feel inspired. You won't always feel strong. But you keep going because you know your Rab is watching, and that knowledge is enough. Faith turns discipline into something spiritual, something deeply fulfilling. It's no longer about self-control. It's about surrender. You're not just trying to prove something to yourself. You're trying to please Allah. You begin to understand that every act of discipline, waking up for Fajr, controlling your anger, lowering your gaze, is actually a form of dhikr. It's remembrance in action. It's the body's way of saying, I belong to Him. And the beauty of this transformation is that it simplifies your life. You stop needing motivation from the outside world because your motivation comes from within. You no longer wait for the right mood to worship because you've learned that consistency brings its own reward. The one who is disciplined in faith doesn't rely on bursts of emotion. They rely on quiet persistence. Even on the days when their heart feels dry, they still show up because they know that Allah loves the effort, not the outcome. That is the secret of the believer's strength. Faith gives meaning to discipline, and discipline gives shape to faith. Without discipline, faith remains a feeling, fleeting, inconsistent, unreliable. But when you pair faith with discipline, it becomes a force that changes everything. You start seeing results not just in your worship, but in your work, your character, your relationships. Your patience grows, your focus strengthens, and your peace deepens, because now every small act of control becomes a seed planted for the hereafter. And Allah never lets those seeds go to waste. There's a powerful shift that happens when your discipline is driven by devotion. You begin to crave closeness to Allah more than comfort. You find sweetness in struggle because you know it's bringing you nearer to Him. You begin to realize that every time you resist temptation, every time you stay consistent in prayer, every time you choose silence over anger, you're polishing your heart. Slowly, that heart starts to shine. It bows before Allah not only in prayer, but in every moment of life. And when that happens, you'll see that faith and discipline were never separate. They were always two sides of the same coin. Discipline without faith is dry and mechanical, but faith without discipline is weak and unstable. Together, they create a believer who lives with purpose, peace, and power. Because when discipline becomes devotion, the heart doesn't just obey, it comes alive. When the heart truly bows before Allah, something extraordinary happens. Life itself begins to bow with it. The struggles don't disappear, but their weight feels different. The chaos around you doesn't stop, but it no longer shakes your core. Because when the heart surrenders to the one who controls everything, you stop fighting battles that were never yours to fight. You stop resisting the divine flow of life. You stop questioning every delay, every disappointment, every hardship. Instead, you begin to trust. You begin to breathe. You begin to see how every step, every pause, every loss was guiding you closer to Him. A heart that bows before Allah doesn't chase control, it seeks connection. It knows that control is an illusion, that true peace doesn't come from holding on tighter, but from letting go and saying, "Ya Allah, I trust you." This surrender doesn't make you weak. It makes you unshakable, because now your anchor isn't in people, or outcomes, or expectations. Your anchor is in the Lord of the worlds, the one who never changes, never fails, never forgets. And when your heart finds rest in Him, everything else begins to align naturally. People often think surrender means giving up, but in truth, it means standing firm with faith. It means you no longer allow circumstances to dictate your state of mind. When your heart bows before Allah, you're no longer enslaved by what happens around you. You learn to say Alhamdulillah in hardship and Alhamdulillah in ease. You find beauty in patience and wisdom in waiting. You realize that nothing that was meant for you will ever miss you, and nothing that missed you was ever meant for you. That kind of certainty brings peace that no amount of success or comfort could ever give. When your heart is connected to Allah, discipline becomes easier because you're no longer relying on your own strength. You begin to draw from a source that never runs out. You stop saying, "I can't do this," and start saying, "With Allah, I can." You stop giving up halfway because you remember that Allah doesn't abandon those who strive for His sake. Life starts to feel lighter because your burdens are now carried by the one who promised, indeed, with hardship comes ease. You stop bowing to the pressure of this world because your heart already bows to something far greater. This surrender doesn't just transform how you pray, it transforms how you live. You start treating people with more kindness because your heart is at peace. You stop reacting to every provocation because you've learned to trust in divine justice. You stop comparing yourself to others because you understand that everyone's journey is written with purpose. When the heart bows, the ego softens, pride fades, and humility grows. You start to live not for recognition, but for reward from the one who sees what no one else does. And perhaps the most beautiful part is that once your heart bows before Allah, peace begins to chase you. You no longer have to search for it in temporary things, not in people, not in achievements, not in possessions. Because peace lives where submission lives, when your heart bows in prayer, when it bows in gratitude, when it bows in trust, life begins to align with that posture. You walk lighter, you breathe deeper, you love more sincerely, because everything in your life now revolves around the one who deserves it most. And in that surrender, you finally realize when the heart bows before Allah, nothing else in creation can ever make it fall.